What would you do if someone destroyed your property again and again, smiling while they did it, and no one, absolutely no one, could stop them? Would you fight back, or would you let them win? I didn't know my answer at first. But when the HOA's most feared Karen turned my life into her personal playground, she had no idea what was coming next. It started like any other day in the neighborhood. The sun came crawling over the rooftops. Sprinklers hissed across the neatly trimmed lawns, and the usual joggers passed by with their dogs on bright-colored leashes. On the surface, everything looked perfect. The kind of perfect you see in real estate brochures promising peaceful suburban living behind shiny white fences. But beneath the surface, this neighborhood had a heartbeat of its own. The kind that carried whispers about HOA letters, secret grudges, and one woman who seemed to run the entire show, Karen. That morning, my coffee hadn't even cooled before I saw it. My mailbox lying in the dirt, the wooden post cracked clean in half like a broken bone. Letters scattered across the driveway, bills, and envelopes soaking in the morning dew. I stood there frozen, coffee cup in hand, heart sinking. This wasn't the first time. The first time it happened, I tried to be rational. Maybe the driver didn't see it. Maybe they were backing up and misjudged the distance. Maybe it was the delivery truck. But then it happened again, and again. By the fourth time in 2 weeks, I couldn't call it bad luck anymore. No, this was deliberate. And every single time, she was there. Karen, the woman who walked like she owned the pavement, who talked like she was the law itself, the one with the bright orange HOA clipboard in her hand at every meeting, the woman who fined neighbors for holiday lights being too bright, or for grass growing a quarter-inch higher than regulations allowed. And now, apparently, she had decided mailboxes were her next battlefield. I wasn't the only one. As I stooped to pick up my muddy letters, a neighbor walking his dog shook his head. "She got us too," he muttered under his breath. Another neighbor told me later, 3 times in 1 week. She just keeps doing it. But no one dared complain publicly because Karen was the HOA. Complaining to the board was like complaining to her face. Nothing would happen. Nothing ever did. The breaking point for me came one rainy Tuesday. I woke to gray skies and the sound of distant thunder. The air smelled like wet asphalt as I stepped outside, coffee in hand, hoping maybe, just maybe, this day would be different. It wasn't. The mailbox was down again. Not leaning. Not cracked. This time was shattered into pieces. The post split like firewood. And Karen? She was still there, not even pretending to leave this time. Her silver SUV idled across the street, windshield wipers sliding back and forth, her silhouette barely visible behind tinted windows. But I could see enough to know she was smiling. Not a friendly smile. A satisfied one. Something inside me changed in that moment. This wasn't just about a mailbox anymore. It wasn't about wood and metal, or even about mail. It was about control. Power. The quiet kind of power people like Karen fed on, the kind that made her feel untouchable. But she wasn't going to smile for long. That afternoon, I started planning. I spent hours on forums, watching videos, reading stories about people fighting back against difficult neighbors and power-drunk HOA leaders. There were plenty of creative ideas out there, motion sensor sprinklers, security cameras, even decoy mailboxes filled with glitter. But none of them felt right for this situation. Karen was bold, too bold for pranks. No, I needed something better, something that would hit harder, something that would make her think twice before coming near my property again. By evening, I had my plan. It was simple, legal, brilliant, and by Saturday, I had everything I needed to make it real. Sunday morning arrived clear and bright. The neighborhood woke up slowly. Kids riding bikes, neighbors trimming hedges, the usual peaceful routine. But across the street, like a vulture on a power line, Karen's SUV sat parked and waiting, watching. She didn't know what was coming. I stood in my driveway as the workers arrived. They carried heavy equipment, metal posts, concrete bags, and tools that clanged like warning bells across the quiet morning. By noon, the new mailbox was in place. And it wasn't just a mailbox anymore. The post was solid steel, the kind used for road signs along highways. Set deep into concrete, unshakable. And at the top, A heavy-duty metal mailbox built like a fortress, the kind delivery trucks couldn't dent if they tried. It gleamed in the sunlight like a challenge. Neighbors stopped to watch, murmuring under their breath. Some smiled. Some glanced nervously at Karen's SUV across the street. And Karen? She sat frozen, gripping the wheel, glaring through the glass as if she could burn the entire thing down with just her stare. But for the first time since this war began, I smiled, because I knew one thing for sure. She wouldn't be able to resist. She never could, and when she finally tried, well, let's just say the game was about to change forever. Some battles start with shouting. Others start with lawyers. But this battle began the moment Karen saw that steel post shining in the sun and she couldn't stand it. I didn't know at the time, but by planning that mailbox, I had just declared war on the most vindictive HOA Karen this neighborhood had ever seen. The first 2 days after the mailbox went up were quiet. Too quiet. Neighbors walked past slowly, eyes darting between the gleaming steel post and Karen's SUV, which hadn't left its usual spot across the street. Kids whispered about it as they biked past. Even the HOA newsletter that week made no mention of mailbox guidelines, which was shocking given Karen's usual habit of writing entire paragraphs about things like lawn ornaments and acceptable shades of paint for front doors. But there was no way she was done. Karen didn't let things go. Ever. The air itself felt tense, like the neighborhood was holding its breath. Everyone knew something was coming. And they were right. It happened on a Thursday morning. I woke up to a low rumble outside. The kind of sound you feel in your chest before you even hear it properly. Through the curtains, I could see her SUV idling across the street, like a predator waiting for the right moment. And then, in one single reckless motion, she hit the gas. The silver SUV leapt forward, tires spitting gravel as it crossed the street. For one split second, the entire world seemed to freeze. The mailbox, the car, the neighbors watching from porches with wide eyes. Then came the impact. Only this time, it wasn't wood and splinters flying across the lawn. It was metal on metal. A crash so loud it echoed off the houses, sending birds scattering into sky. Her SUV shuddered violently, the front bumper crumpling like paper as the entire vehicle bounced backward from the unmovable post. The mailbox didn't even flinch. Neighbors gasped. Someone dropped their coffee cup on the sidewalk. And across the street, Karen's SUV sat smoking, the front end bent at an ugly angle while the mailbox gleamed in the sunlight. Not a single scratch on it. That moment changed everything. For the first time, Karen didn't look smug. She looked furious. Not embarrassed. Furious. She slammed the door, marched to the twisted bumper, and glared at the steel post like it had personally insulted her. But she couldn't do a thing. The post was perfectly legal, installed to every city code and regulation. I had made sure of it. And the neighbors? Oh, they saw it all. Word spread fast. Faster than Karen could ever hope to control. By evening, the entire neighborhood knew what had happened. Some even took quiet photos of the wrecked SUV before she had it towed away. For years, Karen had ruled this neighborhood with warning letters and fines, but now she had been beaten by a mailbox, and she hated it. But Karen wasn't finished. I should have expected it. Really, people like her don't lose gracefully. By the weekend, HOA notices started appearing in mailboxes, real ones this time, not smashed in the dirt. New safety guidelines, new neighborhood regulations, all suspiciously targeting things like mailbox size, placement, and materials. It was obvious what she was doing. She couldn't destroy my mailbox anymore, so she was going to bury it in rules and paperwork instead. But what she didn't know was that I was already one step ahead, because while she was busy rewriting regulations, I had discovered something about her, something big, something the whole neighborhood would want to know. And it was hiding in the very HOA record she thought gave her power. I spent hours digging through public documents, old newsletters, even city inspection reports. The deeper I went, the clearer it became. Karen had been bending rules for herself for years. Fencing permits never filed. Landscaping expenses approved by her own signature. Even a backyard shed that technically violated HOA guidelines she once fined another neighbor for breaking. If the neighborhood saw this, if the board saw this, Karen wouldn't just lose her war with me. She'd lose everything. The next HOA meeting was only days away. Karen thought she was coming to pass her new mailbox rules. But I was coming with proof that the queen of the HOA had been breaking her own laws all along. And when the neighbors saw it, there'd be no going back. Not for her. Not for this neighborhood. And definitely not for me. Some wars end with peace. Others end with fire. But this one ended in a way no one in the neighborhood would ever forget. Because when Karen walked into that HOA meeting, she thought she was still in control. She thought her power was untouchable. But by the time she walked out, everything she had built was gone. The night of the HOA meeting felt electric. For years, these meetings have been dull affairs. Karen reading rules off a clipboard while bored neighbors nodded along. But tonight, people came early. Whole families filled the folding chairs in the community center. Some neighbors even stood along the back wall, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Everyone had heard about the mailbox, about the crash, about the new rules Karen was pushing through, and everyone was ready for a fight. Karen arrived late, as always, striding in with her clipboard like a queen entering her throne room. Her SUV, still sporting a dented hood, sat outside like a silent witness to what had happened days earlier. She didn't smile this time. Her eyes scanned the room, lingering on me for half a second longer than anyone else, before she launched into her usual speech. New regulations, she called them, safety measures. But everyone knew the truth. This was revenge. She wanted my steel mailbox gone. She wanted her power back. She wanted to erase the one thing in this neighborhood she couldn't control. But then it was my turn. I stood slowly, holding a folder thick with papers. The room went quiet. For months, years, even Karen had been the one controlling the narrative, using HOA rules like weapons. But tonight, I had the evidence that turned the entire game upside down. I laid out everything. The unfiled permits for her own backyard projects. The landscaping funds that had mysteriously doubled a year she hired her cousin's company. The shed she built in violation of the very height limits she fined another family for breaking. One by one, I placed the documents on the table. The room erupted in whispers. And for the first time, Karen didn't look angry. She looked afraid. The HOA board members exchanged glances. Neighbors murmured louder, some even pulling out their phones to snap pictures of the evidence. Karen tried to interrupt, of course, tried to wave it off as out of context or old news. But it was too late. The neighborhood had seen enough. Years of fines, letters, and petty power plays, all undone by her own hypocrisy. One board member finally stood and announced that a vote would be held, not for new mailbox regulations, but for Karen's removal as HOA president. The room exploded in cheers. Karen stormed out before the vote even finished, her clipboard clutched in white-knuckled hands. And just like that, the queen of the HOA was gone. Weeks later, the neighborhood felt different. People planted flowers without fear of fines. Kids left bikes in driveways without nasty letters showing up in mailboxes. And speaking of mailboxes, mine stood tall and unshaken, the steel post gleaming in the sun, like a quiet monument to the day the HOA's reign of terror ended. Karen's house went up for sale not long after. Rumor had it she moved to another community. I almost felt bad for whoever lived there. Almost. Call to action. And that's how one broken mailbox led to the fall of the most feared HOA Karen in the neighborhood. But what about you? Have you ever dealt with a Karen or a crazy HOA? Let me know your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more wild HOA drama stories just like this one. Because trust me, there are plenty more where this came from.